I've actually done this challenge before. This will be my second time doing it. I did it last year for 2023. So I figured why not bring it back around for 2024 and do it again. This is gonna be my end of the year book tag, babes.
Copy music.
If y'all can hear my kids in the background, just try to ignore them, okay? They're playing in the garage, and the garage is literally right under my office, so they're playing on the karaoke machine, so just bear with me. We are officially on day, what is this, 18 of Vlogmas? I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good pushing out this content, y'all. Proud of me. If you're new here and you enjoy the vibes, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and most of all, subscribe, okay? Usually I'm sitting in my chair, but as y'all know, I am still functioning with a sprained toe, so I'm on the floor with my foot propped, so y'all just vibe with me, okay? Let's not even talk about it. I can't remember who I initially saw do this challenge, otherwise I would give credit to them, but I am going to use the exact same questions that I used last year. Let me quench my thirst first. I got my iPad ready. We're gonna go ahead and jump in because y'all know I can get to yapping and I don't want this to be longer than it needs to be. Okay, so the very first question, and I actually added this question on just for shits and giggles. What was the first book that I read in 2024? The first book that I actually got into in 2024 just so happens to be Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Some of y'all may have seen my previous book vlogs or book videos. You would know that this is the very first fantasy book that I jumped into, period, okay? So this is how I kicked off my fantasy journey, and I haven't looked back ever since. The way I love this book, the way I love this series is quite insane, okay? The obsession with dragons has always been real, but especially after reading this series, I cannot wait for the next book to drop. I really need to invest in one of those little mic things because it seems like when y'all be using those, it muffles the background. I need that. I need that. Moving right along, the second question on the list is what was my most disappointing book or disappointing read of 2024? I actually have 5, okay? And it just so happens to be a series, and I just so happened to read this series fairly recently, and that series just so happens to be the reason why I'm in my current book slump. The series that I'm referring to is the Dark Kingdom series by Chantel Tessier. Y'all, the disappointment is just so real, and I'm trying to keep it demure just simply because I really love Chantel as an author. I love her books. I mean, I have a good bit of her books on my shelf, if I'm being completely honest, you know. This particular series was a lot earlier in her writing career, I'm assuming, and you could definitely tell the big difference between the books that I've read, you know, that I love compared to the books that were kind of like her up and coming startup series. The sole purpose of me jumping into this particular series was because I am so deep into the L.O.R.D.S series, which is like a spinoff of this. I can't even say it's a spinoff, but the worlds are interconnected in a way. Some of the characters in the Dark Kingdom series shows up in the L.O.R.D series. So I was like, I have to know who these other people are. Who are these guys? Who's this girl? You know, what's the tea with them? Let me go backwards and see what I may have missed out on. So that was the sole purpose of me reading them. I will say, it's not that the books are bad, it's just not what I'm used to when it comes to this particular author. You could definitely tell the growth in her writing. I feel like if I would have started off with these, I probably wouldn't have been as disappointed as I was. But being that I was introduced to her in her early, you know, in her most recent writings, it just doesn't compare. It doesn't compare. And unfortunately, it just put me in a slump. Granted, I did truly enjoy 2 of the books in the series, but the other 3, it was me just kind of like trying to get the fuck through. And I'm in a slump because of it. I should have just DNF'd, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. So here we are. A book that I would consider an underdog. I'm gonna have to go with Blood Orange by Karina. Reason being is because I just strongly feel like this book isn't talked about enough. It's not talked about enough. It's not highlighted enough. There's not enough people ranting about how good this book is. And that is genuinely just shocking to me. I don't understand. I think the first person that I even saw mention this book was, what is her name? She's a YouTube creator. And I think she's outside of the States. I think her name is Poppy. And she reads a lot of dark romance books. And she is the person that I saw talk about this book. And I never saw anybody else talk about it. So I put it on my TBR. And when spooky season came around, I jumped into it because this is a Dracula retelling. And the way I ate this book up is actually ridiculous. Like, I read this one, I read Black Rose, and then I immediately went to find the other spinoffs of this book and added that to my TBR as well. Like, her writing is amazing. The way that she even talks about the characters and the world building is like, she is very good at, if you're a vivid person, like when you're reading, the way that she goes about writing is very easy to imagine the world that she's talking about. You know what I mean? And the fact that a lot of people either haven't heard about this book or don't talk about it is just crazy to me. Like, it's just crazy to me. Definitely an underdog book, in my opinion, because I don't see it enough. I don't see people talking about it enough. And I don't like that. Read it. The next question on the list is, what do I consider the most overhyped book of 2024? In my personal opinion, I'm going to have to go with Butcher and Blackbird. Okay, so, and I've said this a lot, you know, I did not dislike this book. I did not have a bad time with this book. I actually, you know, it was a decent read, but I was just so excited to get into this book just based off of all of the reviews that I was seeing on TikTok, and being that it was so hyped, and just the simple fact that it has to do with serial killers. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a comedy, for crying out loud. I love dark humor, and you mix that with serial killers and things of that nature. Like, I just knew it was going to be a good time. Which it was a good time. It just wasn't the best time for me personally. And I really feel like if I didn't see as much hype as I saw when I went into this book, I feel like I would have enjoyed it a lot more than I actually did. So unfortunately for me, I feel like it was just overhyped. But I mean, you know, if other people really liked it, to each his own, you know? I didn't dislike it. I just didn't love it. I didn't love it the way that I wanted to. I just knew that I was going to love this book, and unfortunately, I didn't. But I had a decent time. Don't let me deter you from reading it, though, okay? Because you just might enjoy it. It was a good read. It was fun. It was funny. It just was overhyped to me. A book that surprised me, I actually have 3 on my list. The first one is Skin of a Sinner by Avina Grave is her last name. This is a dark romance, and it's a lot of tragedy, it's a lot of trauma. And the only reason that this book shocked me is because I thought for sure that I was not going to enjoy it. Like, just the cover alone just didn't do it for me. I read the blurb, and I mean, it seemed like it was an okay read, but going into it, I was pulled in immediately just from the first chapter. I believe, what was his name? Roman was just, there was a lot of red flags with Roman. However, I would be willing to go down that roller coaster ride, because Roman was the epitome of, you mess with my girl, you out of here, period. Like, you make her cry, you bully her, you pick on her, whatever, you're out of here. I loved Roman. This actually was a really, really good story. The love story just seemed very authentic because they practically grew up together. So it wasn't like an insta-love type thing. Their love story actually made sense. The obsession with each other actually made sense. You know what I mean? So I was really, really surprised by this book. I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the storyline. And I was surprised that I enjoyed it, because I thought I was going to hate it. Next book that surprised me was In 5 Years by Rebecca Serrell. The way that this book went, it's like you read the blurb and you know that's what you're going into. You read the story and that's what you're going into. But the way that the twists and turns happened in the book is not at all what you expected it to be. So it did surprise the hell out of me. I think I gave this a 4.5. I had a good time with this book. I just hated the main character. She was just annoying. She was just very, very annoying. But I actually really did enjoy this book. The ending definitely took me by surprise. And then I for sure can't move on from this question until I mention Pen Pal. Mind fuck at its finest. Surprised the entire hell out of me. It's like you should see this coming. But the way that this author did the plot and the twists and turns and just the storyline in general, I just don't even have the words. Definitely surprised me, because going into it, you think it's a dark romance, but it's not. It's far from a dark romance, but the story is definitely giving, and the shock value is definitely there. The next question is, who are my favorite book couples in 2024? Honestly, if I go through every single book that I read this year, we'll be here all day. So I'm just going to settle for one. This was a hard choose, okay? The couples that I'm going for is actually in the Keeper series, and the first book is the Hourglass Keeper. Unfortunately, the individual that I'm talking about isn't in this book, I don't think. I don't think this character shows up until the second installment in this series. However, I love that couple, Azahara and He Who Shall Not Be Named, because I can't give his name because it'll be a big spoiler if you go into this series. But their love story is immaculate. And I'm actually showing the wrong book. The correct book I should be showing is The Keeper's Moon, and that one just came out December 1st, I believe. And this showcases the two characters that I'm referring to, but I don't have that book on hand yet, which is the only reason why I'm holding this one up. But hands down, my favorite couple right now, out of all the books that I've read this year, I would have to say that is my favorite couple, just solely because this man is the epitome of unconditional love. And what else can we ask for? Honestly. Best book boyfriend written on paper, period. Just argue with whoever, just not me. I'm gonna die on that hill. My favorite main character of 2024, hands down, is going to have to go to Josh from Lights Out. Josh is just the funniest character that I've read this year, I would have to say. Now, granted, I do have a lot of characters that I love. And Josh is just one of them. Josh is, I don't know. You have to read the book. You would have to read the book, because I don't want to go through the whole, meat and potatoes of what this is about to even, whatever. If you want to know more about this, check out my other two vlogs where I kind of go into a little bit more detail in regards to this book. But Josh is just hilarious, okay? The person that narrated his POV on Audible, Chef Kiss, hands down one of my favorite characters of 2024. Another one of my favorite characters, and I know this is the book that I was holding up before, but I gotta hold it up again because my girl Zall is also in this particular series, and she is African American, she has locks, she is tall, she is lesbian, she is a warrior, she is just everything. She's everything, okay? And I love her character so much in this series. I just can't even begin to explain or fathom. Zal is me and I'm her, okay? Love her. Okay, my new favorite authors discovered this year. I actually have a couple. So my first one is, I've already clearly showed the books and talked about it so far in this vlog, but the first one is definitely M.L. Burns. I just read these books this year, and I don't know, it's just really the way that she is with her pen as far as trauma is concerned in the fantasy world, and just the shock value in her books, because you're definitely going to get some twists and turns, and at the end of the books your mind is going to be blown. You're going to be pissed, you're going to want to fight, you know what I mean? Like, the things that she does throughout her book just to give you whiplash or damn near a heart attack is insane, okay? And just for that alone, I love her as an author. And then she also pays a lot of homage to just culture, whether it's the Black culture, whether it's the LGBT, you know, culture, whether it doesn't matter. She just definitely sheds light on a lot of things outside of just one particular culture, if you know what I mean. You follow me. I don't even got to get into that, but I love that about her, and I love that about her books. The next author is Karina Howe. I think that's how you say her name. I just got into her writing this year, over spooky season, and her mind, like, she's an author that I would love to sit down with and have a one-on-one with, because the things that she was putting in her book was very just, it's the type of topics that I like to talk about, okay? So the reincarnation and the spiritual side of things and the magic and all type of things like that, like the way that her mind works, she just seems, the way that she writes, it just gives that she has a very vast thought process, a very open mind when it comes to things that most people in the world aren't really connected to, hip to, or even, you know, comfortable with. And I like that. I love authors that like step outside of the box, and she's definitely one of those. The next one is Blake Crouch. Now, granted, I only read one book by Blake, but I'm convinced that the rest of his catalog got to eat down. I'm convinced, because the way that book ate, and I'm gonna talk about it later. I mean, those that have been here, you already seen me talk about it a lot, but that book is gonna come up in one of these next questions. But I actually loved his writing. His writing is just, it makes you think. It's very thought-provoking. It makes you, once you put the book down, you're literally going to be thinking about everything, and not just about the book, but how you can apply it to your everyday life. How does this even resonate with me in, you know, outside of the fiction realm? And I really, really enjoyed that. My next question is an author that did not work for me. I actually have two, but I actually have, it's funny because they didn't work for me for two completely different reasons. The first one is Melissa McSherry. Now, I couldn't even tell you what this author looks like, babes. I don't know. I actually read two of her books over spooky season, and it seems as if she is a dark romance writer. Now, those that know, I love dark romance. That is one of my favorite genres. So there's not much that I'm against when it comes to dark romance, because I'm not easily triggered. I can read a lot of different things and be fine in an emotional, in a mental sense. You know what I mean? But there's just some things I just can't get behind. I feel like when I'm reading dark romance, although a lot of the things that takes place in dark romance books happens in real life, I like when I'm reading a book, and although that I know these are real things that happen, I know that I'm still very much in a fiction reality, right? Melissa's books, at least the two that I read, it was definitely teeter-tottering that line of fiction and realistic, and it just was, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was just given that this is real, like this is real life. Like I'm reading this right now and it's happening right now in real time. Like I don't know. If I'm going to read it, I would rather read it in a fiction type energy versus me reading it and feeling as if this is literally happening right now. I don't know. And it's not to say that her writing is bad, because if I'm being completely honest, the books, if you are a type of person that likes morally black, that will be for you and you would definitely enjoy it. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy morally black, because I can read some of those books, but like I said, that thin line, I don't like to teeter that. And her writing was very much teetering that. So she's just not for me. The next one is Natasha Preston. And the reason why I actually read this, did I read this for spooky season 2? I think I did, because this is supposed to be like a psychological thriller. And I just really like the cover and how the book feels and things like that. And I've actually had this book for a minute. I bought this for, I think I've had this for a little over a year before I actually read it. The reason why she's not for me is not because she's a bad author. I think her writing is pretty cool, but the type of books that she writes is childish in a sense. And what I mean by that is if you're a person that's like a beginner when it comes to psychological thrillers and mysteries and things like that, I feel like she would be the perfect author. The perfect author, okay? Because the way she sets the story up, it makes you, it puts you on pins and needles. It kind of has you a little bit anxious to know what's getting ready to happen, but it's definitely more childlike. I feel like this is something that I would have enjoyed when I was back in high school or middle school. I think this would have been more my speed. It was kind of giving Goosebumps. You know what I mean? Like the kind of energy that Goosebumps give you is a really, really fun book, a really fun read. Sometimes it might get you a little bit anxious, but you can definitely tell that it's YA. That's what this is giving. And I'm not against YA books because there have been some YA books that I read and I ate down. I rated 5 stars, you know, but I think it's just the level of YA for me. This one just gave childish. Like this was meant for like an 18-year-old. That's just how I feel about it. So this is, like I said, this is the only book that I read by her. So I don't know if all of her books are like that. But if they are, it's not gonna do it for me. It's just not gonna do it for me personally. So the happiest book that I read in 2024, or should I say the book that made me the happiest in 2024, I have to come back to this book. I have to spin the block back on Lights Out. And that's only because out of every book that I read in 2024, this book made me laugh the most, like LOL out loud, like literally laughing throughout this entire book because it really was that funny. To say this was a stalker romance, a dark romance, the comedy, hilarious. Like I really feel like this could have been a TV series or a movie rather, and I would eat it up. This would be something that I would go back and rewatch over and over again because it was really just that funny. So if I had to say a book that made me the happiest, I have to go with this one, hands down. Which brings us to the other side of the spectrum, a book that made me the most sad in 2024. I'm gonna have to go with The Dragon's Keeper. So this is actually the second book in the Keeper series. And this one was just really heavy, y'all. It was heavy. It was really that good. And the crazy thing about it is this is actually my favorite in the series. But boy, was it heavy. It was sad. It made me sad. It made me angry. This book made me feel a lot of different emotions, but it was also very, very, very healing. It healed a lot of different things that I didn't even know needed to be healed. You know what I mean? So hands down, one of the saddest books that I've read in 2024. I can't say one of the darkest, but if I'm talking about romantasy, because this is a dark romantasy book, if I'm talking about the romantasy genre, definitely one of the saddest ones that I read, okay? Now, I mean, it does have a happy ending somewhat, because I can't, spoilers, when I say all of the books are connected, like all of the books are connected. You're not going to finish one of these books and be like, okay, I'm done with the series. No, like you're going to finish it and you're going to really need to pick up the next one because it's literally like a continuance. You know what I mean? But yeah, definitely one of the saddest, but also one of my faves of 2024. Next question is, what is one of the most frustrating books that I read in 2024? And I really couldn't decide, but I ended up going with this one, Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. Now, I'm also a huge lover of H.D. Carlton, so there is no hate. I don't ride no hate train when it comes to H.D. or when it comes to Chantel. Those are some of my favorite dark romance writers, period. I don't care. Fight your mama, not me. Either way it goes, this one was the most frustrating just solely because I don't even know where to begin. For one, I just feel like it was too long because this is a, what you call it? What's that trope? Forced proximity. This is a forced, I feel like this book was just too long to say it was a forced proximity book. How long was this book? A little over 400 pages. Yeah, it was a little over 400 pages. And I just feel like for a forced proximity book, ain't but so much you could talk about. Ain't but so much you could be doing. Because we in the same space. We in the same, like, you know what I'm saying? So that was very frustrating. The characters were also very frustrating, although I enjoyed the characters. The banter between them was outrageous, but their personalities was also very frustrating. The fact that they were literally in danger the entire time is already bad enough that you're shipwrecked on an island, but you're in danger on the island and all you can think about is spicy time. You about to die. Like, y'all can figure this out later. Y'all can, bunk over later. Can we try to live first? And then we can, get it in all the time. But that's not going to be possible if we in the morgue. It was just a lot of things that was very frustrating about this book. But the thing about H.D. Carlton, like, her writing style and her mind and thought process is just so out there. Although it was frustrating, you couldn't help but finish it. You know what I mean? I think I rated this a 3-star. It wasn't my favorite book, but I did have a decent time with it. I did laugh a couple of times throughout this book, but I'm really not a fan of bully romances either. And Enzo was definitely, he was definitely a bully. Now, he had reason. And I will stand on that hill also because he's a Scorpio. So I'm going to stand on that hill. He had reason to be a bully. Did he like drag it? Probably so. But the thing about a Scorpio, baby, once you break our trust, it's going to be very hard to get it back. And we're going to put you through hell for doing that. Because why you had to cross that? Why you had to do that? If you was going to fuck us over, you should have just stayed over there. That's just how I feel about it. So I thought some of the stuff that he did was funny. I probably shouldn't have been laughing, but I am a dark humored bitch. But either way it goes, he was kind of frustrating because it's just like, okay, Enzo, let it go. Like, it's time to let it go. But one thing we're going to do is hold a grudge. It is what it is. Whatever. You hurt us. You might as well just go ahead and have your little boxing gloves on until the day you die because we ain't going to never stop. Whatever. The best book adaptation. Did I say that right? I feel like I always say that wrong. If I'm being honest, I have not read this book yet, y'all, but I actually got this book over the summer. And I actually stole this from my mom's bookshelf. I did a little mini vlog when I went to her house and kind of raided her shelf. I'll post it there so y'all can go catch it if you want to catch it and watch it. But I actually got this book off her shelf. I didn't even realize that a show was made from this book until I watched the show. And I was like, wait, I feel like I've seen that book on my shelf. Let me go see if I can find it. The book that I'm talking about is Alex Cross by James Patterson. So this show is actually on Amazon Prime. And when my sister was in town a couple of weeks ago, she was begging me and my husband to watch this show with her. And I think she was already on like episode 4 or 5. So when I finally started paying attention to the show, because I don't know what I was doing. I was in my own little world, probably editing videos, I don't know. But I just happened to catch a scene on the show and I was stuck. I was stuck and I was hooked. Now, granted, I had finished the show and I still haven't seen the first like 3 or 4 episodes. So I have to go back and rewatch the whole thing. But the show was good. Now, granted, I really didn't like the ending. I wasn't a fan of how it ended because it did have a plot twist, but the plot twist was just kind of like, what was the point? What was the reason? I wonder if the book is going to be the same way as far as the plot twist is concerned. But now that I saw the show, I really, really want to read the book just to see if there's going to be any differences, any correlations, any, similarities or whatever. I really want to see. And I definitely want to see if the plot twists are going to be the same or if it's going to end the same way that the actual show did. So if you watched this show, let me know. Drop it down in the comments. But this was a really good show from what I could see. And now I'm really interested to see what the book is going to hold. What the book is going to... Is the book going to be giving to? My favorite book covers of 2024. Now, there's a couple of books that I could show you right now. I'm only going to do books that I read this year, okay? I'm only going to do books that I actually read this year. So, the main book that I love the most is Outdrawn by Deanna Gray. Because just look. These girlies are so adorable. They're so cute, okay? Come on, Black Girl Magic. I just think this cover is just the bee's knees. I just love this. I love this book. I love this cover. I love the texture. It just eats, okay? What is a book that I haven't stopped thinking about? If you know, you should already know the book that I'm getting ready to show y'all. And if you don't, then baby, are we besties for real? The one, the only, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I told you Big Blake was about to come back around, baby. I told you Big Blake was about to come back around. I have not stopped thinking about this book. I have not stopped talking about this book. The way that I love this book, okay? This literally one of my favorite books of 2024. Hands down. Hands down, one of my all-time favorite books in general. Hands down, I really, really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed his writing, his thought process, just everything that he came up with to even create the story was just incredible. Now, I really wasn't a fan of the characters that much. They were pissing me off, but I think that's how he wanted it. Like, he wanted you to kind of get emotionally attached and also just feel all of the feels when it came to the different choices that these characters was making. And he did an excellent job at executing that. Hands down, I will never stop thinking about this book, talking about this book, or recommending this book. Matter of fact, I'm recommending it right now because if you haven't read it, what are you doing? Get into it. The next question is an unpopular book that I actually love. Now, this is the kicker. This book is actually not really unpopular at all. A lot of people love this book, but the reason why I'm going to talk about this book is because of all of the hate that this book got when it came out. And the book that I'm referring to is Only for the Weak by Natasha Bishop. The way that y'all played on this lady top with this book is actually quite sickening, and I'm still mad about it. I'm still angry about it. What pisses me off when it comes to Black authors and their stories is how a lot of people that read these books go into it and they don't like them, or they feel a way about it because they feel like it's just so unrealistic. I'm just trying to figure out what is so unrealistic about a Black man having lots of money. What is so unrealistic about him pouring into his lady's love language and taking her on a yacht to read books together? What is so unrealistic about a Black man standing up for his woman? That happens in real life, you know. Those things are real. It's not just the white characters, you know, that have these things. You know what I mean? So I just really did not like how a lot of people, and that was their main thing, was, oh, it's just so unrealistic. Okay, if your life has no abundance, just say that, because it's a lot of people out here that's actually moving in that way. And I don't know, I just found that very weird. So that's the only reason why I'm talking about this book as the most unpopular, because it wasn't unpopular, but just the hate that came with. The story was really cute, the cover was really cute, as you can see. And like, please, okay? Just talking about it be pissing me off. But the next question that I have here is a book that I thought I would love, but didn't. So the book that I'm going to talk about is Gothicana by Runix. First of all, this is another cover that I really, really enjoyed. I loved this cover so much. And I probably should have talked about this book when I brought up the question about a book that I was surprised by, because I was very surprised by the storyline and the plot of this book too, because it's not at all what I expected it to be, and I did enjoy it. I thought I was going to love this book to pieces just because of, you know, the cover, how it's, you know, I don't know, it was just giving that it was going to eat. Did it eat? Yes. But then I didn't eat the whole plate. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ate it, but there's leftovers. Does that make sense? Like, I did have a really good time with this, but then at the same time, I didn't. I don't even know how that makes sense, but it does. And I think one of the things that I said on TikTok was like, I don't understand how a book can be so intriguing and so captivating, but so boring all at the same time. That's kind of what this was giving. I really did enjoy the characters. I really enjoyed the plot. I really enjoyed the storyline. I enjoyed the darkness of the book, the dark academia, you know what I'm saying, the paranormal activity. Like, I really enjoyed all of it. But I don't know what it was. I feel like I was so intrigued, but also bored at the same time. I don't know if it was just like a slow build. I don't know if it was just taking a long time to get to the point. I'm not sure. Like, I really don't know what it was, but I liked it. I gave it a 3.5. I liked it a lot. I just thought I was going to love it so much more, and I didn't, unfortunately. But yeah, would I recommend it? it's not something I would go out of my way to recommend unless somebody is talking about any of the topics that this book kind of falls under. Then it'll probably pop in my head and be like, oh, you should read this. But it's not something I'm going to go out of my way and talk about, like how I talk about dark matter. Does that make sense? Like, I would recommend it if it's a topic of conversation, but I'm not going to just be like, oh my God, I just finished this great book. Let me tell you about it. You got to read it. Two different sides of the spectrum. A book that has the most unique concept. I'm going to have to go back to the same books, y'all. Unfortunately, okay. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go back to some of the same books. The first one, of course, is going to have to be Blood Orange because the concepts in this book is just crazy. It's reincarnation, for crying out loud. Like, forbidden love, but also fated love. Like, how does that even work? But just the spiritual aspect of it all. I just can't even get into all the details right now because we're going to be here all day. This was definitely one of the most unique concepts that I've read so far this year. The next one, of course, we talking about Big Blake. Got to, because if you read it, you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean. You know how I feel. I can't even begin to describe. All I can say is just thought-provoking. It definitely makes you think about every single thing that you've done in life. Most unique concept, period. I have to double back to In 5 Years because this too, most unique concept. Definitely something that has you thinking, you know, premonitions and things of that nature. The way that you could possibly get a premonition and you think it's going to go one way, but it's really something else entirely. Trusting your intuition, trusting your gut, not overthinking things. Like, it just literally leaves you thinking. It leaves you thinking, it leaves you wondering, it leaves you questioning. It's just definitely one of the most unique concepts. A book that I wish I was able to get to this year, I don't know if I have one. If I'm being completely honest, I have a lot. So I don't even know how I can really answer that question because there's a lot of books that's on my TBR that I am itching to read. I'm itching to get into, and I just wasn't able to, whether it's just due to time or whether I was focused on a different book or a different series at the time. So I can't even really answer that question for real. Just know that it's a lot of books that I wish I was able to read this year. But hey, it is what it is. We got another year that's coming up, which means another year of reading. What was my 2024 reading goal? Did I hit my reading goal? And also, what is my reading goal for 2025? So my reading goal for this year was 80 books because last year, I think I set myself up to do 50. And I did pretty good last year. I surpassed my 50 books. This year, I set it for 80 because I wanted to challenge myself to see if I could read a little bit more, especially since I had just come out of like a year long, it was multiple years actually, of being in a reading slump. And I kind of wanted to just dive back into something that I love to do. So I really wanted to challenge myself. And I surpassed my 80 books, y'all. Currently, my count is at 112. Now, will I read any more books this year? I'm honestly not sure, unless it's like Audibles, because I am currently in a book slump right now. So unless it's Audibles, I don't really know if that number is going to go up for real. But right now I'm at 112, and that's a lot of books. But then at the same time, I think there's literally 365 days in the year. I don't really feel like that's a whole lot, you know, especially because some of the books that I read were more so novellas and short stories and things of that nature. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm proud of myself. I am proud of myself. It wasn't my goal to reach that many books, but I did, and kudos to me. My reading goal for 2025, I actually don't have one right now. I think I may settle around, you know, somewhere between 50 and 80 again, because I'm just comfortable there. I'm not a person that tries to get to 100 books or more to 100. I'm not knocking anybody that does. Do you? If you have the time and you're able to read that much, I say do it, because why not? You're doing something that you love. But for me personally, I know that my life is super chaotic. You know, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I homeschool. I run a business. So it's not possible for me to set super high goals like that, which is why I'm really surprised that I read as much as I did this year. But it's not possible for me. I don't want to set myself up to be disappointed, essentially. So I'm going to stay in that range like I do every single year. And if I meet it, great. If I don't, it's whatever, you know? At least I'm reading again. That's all that matters. The last question, y'all, we made it to the finale. The last question is, what will I prioritize as far as reading is concerned in 2025? So what I really want to prioritize for my reading in 2025, one would be to read more physical copies, okay? Because I have a lot of physical copies that's on my shelf that I have not gotten into yet. And, you know, I'm just a girl. It's all these other books that come out that is very interesting, and books that we're waiting to drop that's also, you know, highly anticipated. So of course I'm grabbing those and I'm reading those faster than I read anything on my shelf. But I do kind of want to read a little bit more that I already own before I start grabbing other books to put on my shelf. That way I can kind of recycle out the books that I didn't really have a good time with or that I don't want, and I can make room for all of the new books that are coming in. So that's something I'm definitely going to prioritize. Another thing I'm going to prioritize is reading series. Now, I love a good series and I read a lot of series, but there are a couple of series that I've been itching to get into, and I kind of want to focus on that in 2025. So outside of reading the books that I already have on my shelf, I don't even know how many series that I have. Like, there's some series that I really want to read that's like highly anticipated that I have not read. And some series I even own. I mean, like the Devil's Night series is here. We also have ACOTAR. I have not read ACOTAR yet. And yeah, I need to get into that. I have this series here that I haven't read yet. I have the Children of Blood and Bone that I haven't read yet. I'm still waiting to get the third book that just dropped this year. I just have a lot of series that I really want to get into. So I'm going to try to prioritize that in 2025 as well. The last thing that I really want to prioritize in 2025 is making sure that I read more self-help and development books. So as some of y'all may know, my favorite genres outside of dark romance is self-help and development. And all the books that's on this shelf, yeah, these 3 rows, you can't see this one, is all self-help and development books. Like, that's the book, those are the books that I was collecting before I started reading fiction again. So I only had self-help and development because I don't know. I like to grow, I like to learn, I want to continue to try and be the best human being that I could possibly be. So I want to get back into that genre in 2025, just solely because I've spent so much time on fiction over the past 2 years, and I love that for me. And I'm not going to stop reading fiction books because, hello, why would I do that? But I do want to start making sure that I'm not only feeding my fun side and things like that. I do want to continue to feed my spirit as well, okay? So that's something else I want to prioritize, is making sure that I am reading things that are actually going to be beneficial for me as far as just growth is concerned, right? So yeah, okay, y'all, that's it. Literally, that's all. Those are all the questions that I had, y'all. So I think we flew through this fairly quickly. I won't really know how long this is until I go back in to edit it and whatnot, but hopefully it's shorter than last year's one. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this vlog. I hope some of the books that I talked about interest you. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to give me a little thumbs up over there, and definitely subscribe if you enjoyed the vibes. But outside of that, y'all know I love y'all so very much, and I will catch y'all in the next video, okay? Bye.